I was turned away from the wedding because of my horse, and everyone laughed at me. The sun rose lazily over the rolling green hills of New Hope, a small town in rural Virginia. Jack Sullivan, a 35-year-old farmer, had already been up for hours as usual. With a straw hat protecting his sun-weathered face, he admired his coffee fields that stretched as far as the eye could see. By his side, as always, stood Thunder, a majestic white horse that had been with him since boyhood. "Good morning, partner," murmured Jack, stroking the white mane of the animal, which whinnied in response. The bond between the two was something the local residents commented on with admiration. Wherever Jack went, Thunder was always a few steps behind, like a loyal and tireless shadow. Jack's life was simple, predictable, but rich in its own way. He had inherited Riverdale Farm from his father and, through hard work, had transformed it into one of the most prosperous in the region. He preferred the company of animals and the silence of the mountains to the town parties. His heart, said those closest to him, seemed to have stopped in time, as if waiting for something or someone who never returned. That morning, something broke his routine. The mailman, Mr. Anthony, came up the dirt road on his red motorcycle, raising dust. "Jack, letter for you. Looks important, fancy paper," he said, extending a cream envelope with gold details. Intrigued, Jack opened the envelope with his calloused hands. It was a wedding invitation. His brown eyes scanned the elegant letters and stopped at the name of the groom, Richard Montgomery, a name he hadn't heard in 15 years, since they were just dreamy boys on those same hills. "Richard is getting married," he murmured to himself as memories flooded his mind. Richard and Jack had been inseparable in their youth until Richard left for New York to study, promising to return. He never came back. The news that arrived said he had become a successful businessman in real estate, building an enviable fortune. And now, inexplicably, he was inviting his old friend to his wedding. In the days that followed, Jack debated whether to go or not. The wedding would be at a luxury hotel in Richmond, a completely different world from his own. In the end, he decided to attend, perhaps out of curiosity, perhaps out of a sense of closure for that friendship that had been suspended in time. On the eve of the trip, Jack found himself looking at his reflection in the mirror. He wore his only suit, kept for special occasions which already showed signs of age. His black, unruly hair was combed back, and his stubble gave him a rustic air, even with the attempt at elegance. "What a figure we're making, Thunder." He laughed, turning to the horse watching him through the open window. "I don't think I fit into Richard's world anymore." It was then that an idea occurred to him. If he was going to the wedding, he would do it his way. He would ride Thunder to Richmond. The journey would be long, but he knew the rural paths that could take him to the Virginia capital without needing the main roads. It would be his way of bringing a bit of his essence to that event, full of formalities. The next morning, Jack departed. Mounted on Thunder, carrying only a small suitcase with the necessities, he followed his path through the winding trails between mountains and valleys. The weight in his chest, a mixture of nostalgia and apprehension, accompanied him with each trot of the horse. After 2 days of travel, he finally spotted the skyscrapers of Richmond. The city seemed like a separate world, with its fast pace and lights that competed with the stars. Jack guided Thunder carefully through the peripheral streets until he reached the elegant neighborhood where the hotel was located. The contrast couldn't be greater. A simple man on his white horse amid luxury cars and people dressed in designer clothes. When he finally reached the hotel, a sumptuous building with a mirrored facade, Jack dismounted and tied Thunder to a decorative post. He straightened his wrinkled suit from the journey and took a deep breath before climbing the marble steps that led to the main entrance. In the lobby, the receptionist looked at him suspiciously. "May I help you, sir?" "I'm here for Richard Montgomery's wedding," replied Jack, handing over the slightly wrinkled invitation. She examined the paper and, with a forced smile, indicated the way to the ballroom. Jack felt the curious glances and some mocking smiles as he walked down the hallway. His boots, still with traces of dust from the road, left subtle marks on the red carpet. Upon reaching the entrance to the ballroom, 2 security guards in dark, Zoot stopped him. "One moment, sir, you can't enter," one of them said firmly. "I have an invitation," protested Jack, showing the paper again. "That's not it. Your horse is causing a commotion outside. The guests are complaining." "Animals are not allowed, sir." Jack looked through the glass door and saw that a small group of guests had formed around Thunder, some laughing, others visibly uncomfortable. "Thunder doesn't bother anyone. He's gentle," insisted Jack. "I'm sorry. Sir, hotel rules. If you want to enter, you'll need to find another place for the animal." At that moment, Jack spotted through the half-open door of the ballroom an elegant woman in an emerald green dress. She was looking directly at him, with an expression of curiosity on her delicate face. Their eyes met for an instant, and something in those eyes struck him like lightning. There was something familiar there, something that stirred long-buried memories. Before he could identify what it was, Richard appeared beside the woman. His old friend was practically unrecognizable. Carefully combed hair, impeccable suit, posture that conveyed power and confidence. He looked in Jack's direction, and his countenance changed. For a brief moment, there was recognition, followed by something Jack interpreted as disdain, or perhaps shame. Richard whispered something in the woman's ear and quickly walked away, deliberately turning his back on the entrance. The woman, however, continued to observe Jack with intensity, as if trying to decipher a puzzle. Humiliated and frustrated, Jack decided there was no reason to stay. He adjusted his hat on his head and turned around. As he descended the hotel steps, he felt a tightness in his chest. Not for the guests' contempt, but for the way Richard had deliberately ignored him. 15 years of distance had transformed his childhood friend into a stranger. "Let's go, Thunder. We don't belong in this place," he murmured, untying the animal. With an agile movement, he mounted and departed, leaving behind the astonished looks of the nearest guests. In the ballroom, Melissa Anderson, the bride, couldn't get the image of the man with the white horse out of her head. Something about him deeply intrigued her. She approached Richard, who was chatting animatedly with some businessmen. "Who was that man at the entrance, darling?" she asked, interrupting the conversation. Richard disguised his discomfort with a rehearsed smile. "Nobody important, just an acquaintance from the countryside. Probably came to ask for some favor." "But he had an invitation, didn't he? I saw the security guards checking." "Oh yes, I sent some invitations out of courtesy. I didn't expect him to actually show up, much less mounted on a horse," laughed Richard, joined by the other men. Typical of a hick, clueless. Melissa felt a twinge of indignation at the comment, but maintained the diplomatic smile she had learned to use in the social circles she now frequented. As a journalism graduate, her natural curiosity drove her to want to know more. "What's his name?" she insisted. "Jack Sullivan. We grew up together in New Hope, a middle-of-nowhere place. He never left there, still on that little farm of his. Father's? Why the interest?" Melissa swallowed hard. Jack Sullivan. The name hit her like a wave of submerged memories. Could it be the same Jack who, years ago, had saved her when her car skidded on the road during a storm? The gentle young man who sheltered her in his farm until the rain passed, telling stories about the stars while they waited. "Just curiosity," she changed the subject. "It's unusual to see someone arriving on horseback in Richmond." That night, Melissa couldn't sleep. The memories she had locked away now overflowed. At 18, during a reconnaissance trip for a university, reports she had met Jack when he rescued her on the road. They spent just 2 days together, but the connection was instant and deep. They promised to meet again, but fate separated them when she received an internship offer in New York. The contacts were lost, and life went on. Years later, already established as a journalist, she met Richard at a business event. Rich, charming, and determined, he won her over with his world of luxury and possibilities. Marriage would be the next logical step in her social ascension. But now, the sight of Jack awakened doubts she thought were dormant. Determined to clarify the past, Melissa invented an excuse the next morning. "Darling, I've been thinking about buying flowers for the wedding decoration. I heard about a producer in New Hope who has rare varieties. I'm going to make a quick visit." Richard, busy with business meetings, just agreed distractedly. "Take the driver. I don't want you driving alone on those bad roads." "I prefer to go alone. I need to clear my head a bit before the big day," she insisted, already with the car keys in hand. The journey to New Hope seemed endless. Each curve in the road increased Melissa's anxiety. Was she really looking for the man she saw at the hotel, or just running away from the wedding preparations? Even she couldn't answer. Upon arriving at the small town, it wasn't difficult to get information about Riverdale Farm. Everyone knew Jack and his inseparable white horse. Following the directions, Melissa drove down a dirt road until she spotted a large rustic house surrounded by coffee fields and a crystal-clear stream. She parked the imported car and for a moment hesitated. What would she say? How would she explain her presence? Before she could decide, she spotted Jack working in the stable, his back to her. Even from a distance, she recognized his strong posture and decisive movements. Gathering courage, she approached. "Jack?" He turned, surprised. His eyes widened as he recognized her. "Melissa?" His voice came out almost as a whisper. "What are you doing here?" "I came to see about flowers for the wedding," she lied, immediately feeling guilty for the flimsy excuse. Jack observed her for a few seconds as if trying to decipher her true motives. "Flowers?" "Yes, I was told you grow some rare varieties," she improvised. A discreet smile appeared on Jack's lips. "I'm not a florist, but we have a garden my mother planted. I can show it to you if you'd like." They walked side by side to a small garden beside the house. The silence between them was laden with unasked questions. Finally, it was Jack who broke the ice. "So you're Richard's bride?" It wasn't a question, but a statement full of meanings. Melissa nodded, unable to look him in the eyes. "Coincidences of fate," he continued. "I never imagined that the girl from the storm would become my old best friend's wife." "You remember," she said, surprised. "How could I forget? Those 2 days were branded in my memory like a hot iron." Melissa felt her heart race. She hadn't forgotten either, though she tried to convince herself otherwise. It was so long ago. "Time is something relative in the countryside," philosophized Jack. "For me, sometimes it seems like it was yesterday." They sat on a rustic bench under a jabuticaba tree laden with fruit. Jack picked some of the berries and offered them to Melissa, who accepted with a nostalgic smile. The simple gesture transported her back to those days at the farm, when he had shown her the simple pleasures of country life. "And Thunder? Is he still your faithful companion?" "Always. He's in the pasture, resting from the trip to Richmond," replied Jack, "although we weren't welcome at the hotel." Melissa lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "I'm sorry about that. I didn't know Richard had invited you, and much less that we were more acquainted." "Acquainted?" Jack let out a bitter laugh. "Is that how you would define what we experienced?" The direct question caught her off guard. What had they been, after all? A brief encounter, an intense connection, promises made with the naivety of youth, and then silence. It was special, she finally admitted, but life moved on. "Yes, life always moves on," agreed Jack. "You seem to have made a good choice. Richard is a successful man now." The words sounded sincere, but Melissa noticed the melancholy behind them. She looked at Jack more carefully and noticed how much he remained authentic. The same transparent gaze, the same gentleness in his manner, the same connection with the land and animals. For a fleeting moment, she allowed herself to imagine how her life would have been if she had made different choices. "And you, never married?" "I never found anyone who understood my lifestyle," he replied simply. "I'm a simple man, Melissa. I always have been." The sun was beginning to set, painting the sky with orange tones. Melissa knew she needed to return, but something kept her there, as if that moment out of time was too precious to be interrupted. Twilight had already given way to night when Melissa finally decided it was time to leave. She rose from the bench, feeling a strange reluctance, as if each step away from that place meant a definitive goodbye to a part of herself that had been dormant for years. "I need to go back." "Richard must be worried," she said, though the groom's concern was the last thing on her mind at that moment. Jack nodded, understanding. "Of course. The journey back is long." His eyes, illuminated by the moonlight that was beginning to emerge, revealed a mixture of emotions that Melissa couldn't completely decipher. There was resignation, but also a shine of something unsaid, like an ember that refuses to go out. "Thank you for the flowers," she said, though they both knew no flowers had been picked. The flimsy excuse hung between them like a silent confession. "Always at your service," he replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The doors of this farm will always be open for you." Before leaving, Melissa hesitated, looking at the simple but cozy house, at the fields that stretched as far as the eye could see, at the starry sky that never seemed so bright in the city. For a fleeting moment, she imagined what it would be like to wake up every morning to that view, to the birds singing, to the silent but constant presence of Jack. "Will you come to the ceremony? It's this Saturday at 4 in the afternoon," she asked, surprising herself with the invitation. Jack scratched his stubble thoughtfully. "I don't think that's a good idea. The groom made it clear that my presence isn't welcome." "I understand," she murmured, feeling a pang of sadness. "Goodbye, Jack." "Goodbye, Melissa. Be happy." These simple words carried the weight of 1,000 unfulfilled promises, of paths not taken, of stories that could have been written differently. During the entire journey back to Richmond, Melissa fought against inexplicable tears. Why did she feel this way? She was about to marry a successful man, would have a life of comfort and prestige. So why did the vision of a simple farm and a man of unwavering values affect her so much? The city lights began to appear on the horizon, bringing her back to the reality she had chosen for herself. The imported car, Richard's engagement present, glided smoothly over the asphalt, so different from the dirt road she had just left. Like herself, divided between two worlds that seemed incompatible. Upon arriving at the hotel, she found Richard in the lobby, visibly irritated. His impeccable suit and gold watch on his wrist contrasted with his closed expression. "Where have you been all day? I tried to call you several times." His controlled voice barely disguised his anger. "I went to see the flowers like I told." "You? The signal is bad on those roads," she replied, avoiding his gaze, fearing he might read the truth in them. Richard frowned, suspicious. "And where are these flowers?" "I didn't find what I wanted. We'll stick with the original arrangement," she deflected, heading to the elevator, anxious to escape the interrogation. The groom followed her, still with a closed expression. Inside the elevator, surrounded by mirrors that multiplied their images, he seemed to relax a bit. "I have news," he announced with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "That area in New Hope I mentioned, I closed the deal today. We're going to build the largest luxury resort in Virginia." Melissa stopped in the middle of opening her purse. "Resort? In New Hope? But it's a small, quiet town. The people there live from agriculture." "Exactly. That's the charm. The rich from New York will love a rustic retreat, but with all the comfort. Golf, spa, winery, all surrounded by those ridiculously picturesque mountains," he explained, excited about his vision. "And the best part, I got it for dirt cheap. Those hicks have no idea of the real value of the land." A feeling of unease took hold of Melissa. The elevator suddenly seemed too small, suffocating. "Who did you buy from?" Richard smiled, proud, adjusting his tie knot as the elevator reached their floor. "Several small property owners who were in debt. The bank was very cooperative when they learned about the volume of business I do with them." He opened the door to the presidential suite with a theatrical gesture. "And the cherry on top, Riverdale Farm. The owner doesn't know yet, but the bank will execute the mortgage in the next few days. I've already made a deal with the manager." Melissa's blood froze. "Jack Sullivan's farm?" Richard stopped in the middle of the room, turning to face her with genuine surprise. "You know his name? Oh yes, he's that idiot who showed up here on horseback. Ironic, isn't it? He comes to my wedding and I get his land," laughed Richard, not noticing the horror on his fiancée's face. Melissa felt the world spin. It all made sense now. The unexpected invitation, the way Richard had ignored Jack at the hotel. It wasn't coincidence. It was calculated cruelty. How could you do this? You were friends. You grew up together. Richard served himself a whiskey from the suite's private bar, as if not noticing his fiancée's indignation. "Business is business, darling." He stayed behind. I evolved. It's the law of nature. He took a slow sip before continuing. Besides, I'm doing him a favor. What's that hick going to do with all that land? Plant coffee and corn, please. I'm going to transform that godforsaken place into something that really matters. That night, Melissa couldn't sleep. Richard's words echoed in her mind along with the image of Jack's serene face. She thought about calling, warning him about what was coming, but she knew Richard monitored her calls. She needed to find another way. Lying on the king-size bed, looking at the ornate plaster ceiling, Melissa wondered how she hadn't noticed the true character of the man she was about to marry before. The signs were all there. The way he treated the hotel staff, the pleasure he took in displaying his wealth, the way he talked about his defeated competitors. But she had chosen to ignore it, seduced by the security and status he represented. The quay. Next morning, the welcome cocktail party would be held for the guests who were already in town. To Melissa's surprise, during breakfast, Richard announced that he had invited Jack again. I thought better and decided it would be fun to have him around. After all, he needs to know the news about his farm, he said with a malicious smile, spreading jelly on his toast with meticulous precision. Melissa felt sick at the groom's cruelty, but remained silent. Maybe it would be her chance to warn Jack. The cocktail party started punctually at 11 o'clock, a sophisticated event by the hotel's pool, with crystal champagne flowing freely, a string quartet playing classical music, and the most influential guests of Virginia's high society displaying their designer outfits and gleaming jewelry. Melissa circulated among them with a forced smile, an untouched glass of champagne in hand, anxiously looking for Jack. Each time she saw an unfamiliar face, her heart accelerated, only to decelerate again when she realized it wasn't him. "Darling, you're pale. Are you feeling well?" asked her mother, Dr. Catherine Anderson, a renowned plastic surgeon from New York. "I'm fine, Mum. Just a little nervous with all these preparations." "It's normal, dear, but the wait was worth it. Richard is an excellent catch. Your father and I couldn't be more satisfied," she said, adjusting a strand of her daughter's hair with a mechanical gesture. Melissa nodded automatically. Satisfied, that was the word that defined everyone's expectation about her wedding. Not happy, not excited, but satisfied, like closing a good deal. When she had already lost hope, she spotted Jack entering timidly, wearing a simple but well-pressed suit. He seemed out of place among the elegant guests, but there was a dignity in his posture that none of them possessed. Their eyes met again, and she felt that same electricity as on the first day. Before she could approach, Richard suddenly appeared, raising his glass. "Attention, everyone. I want to make a special toast. Today we have among us an unusual guest." The waiters stopped circulating, the music ceased. All heads turned to Richard, who now held Jack by the shoulder with false camaraderie. "This is Jack Sullivan, my childhood friend, a man who preferred to remain stuck in the past while the world moved forward. A man who still rides a horse through the big city, causing embarrassment to everyone," continued Richard, with malice disguised as humor. Polite laughter echoed through the hall. Melissa felt her face burn with shame for the groom's behavior and for Jack's visible embarrassment. But what he doesn't know is that soon his precious little farm will be part of the Montgomery Tourism Complex, the most exclusive resort in Virginia. A murmur of admiration ran through the guests, while Jack remained motionless, his pale face reflecting the shock of the revelation. His eyes, which before shone with serenity, now revealed a deep, visceral pain. Can you imagine? Where today there are worthless plantations and an old stable, we'll have a golf course, spa, heliport. Progress, my friends, continued Richard, intoxicated by his own cruelty. A toast to progress which waits for no one. The guests raised their glasses, unconscious or indifferent to the human drama unfolding. Jack looked at Melissa as if seeking confirmation in her eyes. What he saw there must have been enough, for without saying a word, he turned and quickly left the hall, his back straight but his shoulders visibly heavy. Melissa felt something break inside her. Without caring about the curious looks, she followed Jack to the parking lot. "Jack, wait," she called, holding him by the arm. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." He turned slowly. There was no anger in his eyes, only an infinite sadness. "You're going to marry him?" It wasn't a question, but a painful realization. "I don't know what to do anymore," she confessed, feeling the tears she'd been holding back finally streaming down her face. "Follow your heart, Melissa," he said simply, lightly touching her face to dry a tear. "That's always how you found your way." With those words, he mounted Thunder, who was patiently waiting tied to a tree, and left without looking back. Melissa returned to the cocktail party, but felt like an actress on a stage, playing a role that wasn't hers. When she managed a moment alone with Richard, she confronted him. "Richard, how could you do that, humiliate Jack that way?" "I was just having a little fun," he replied, indifferent, picking another canapé from a passing waiter's tray. "Besides, he needed to know the bank will notify him next week. You humiliated him on purpose. That was cruel and unnecessary." Richard grabbed her arm tightly, his fingers leaving red marks on her fair skin. His eyes, usually calculating, now revealed a fury she had never seen. "What's your problem? Why are you defending that hick? You barely know him." "I know him better than you imagine," she replied, holding his gaze. Something changed in Richard's countenance, a slow and venomous understanding. "Wait a minute. New Hope. You've been there before, haven't you? That story about the college report." His eyes narrowed. "You and he. You know each other." Melissa didn't answer, but her silence was eloquent. "That's why you went after the flowers yesterday. You went to see him, didn't you?" Richard's voice was now dangerously calm. "My fiancé and the farmer. What a lovely cliché." "Let go of my arm," said Melissa with an icy calm that surprised even herself. To her surprise, he obeyed, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Don't worry, dear. I'll still be a generous husband. After we're married, you can even visit your little friend once in a while. Maybe he can get a job as a gardener at the resort." The wedding day finally arrived, clear and sunny, as if nature ignored the turmoil in Melissa's heart. The hotel bustled with activity since early morning, decorators giving the final touches to the ballroom, the chef supervising the preparations for the 5-course banquet, society columnists strategically positioning themselves to not miss any detail of the wedding of the year. While being prepared in the bridal suite, with bustling makeup artists and hairdressers around her, Melissa contemplated her reflection in the mirror without recognizing herself. Who was that woman with a perfect face and empty eyes? The dress, an exclusive creation by a renowned designer, cost more than a luxury car. The diamond tiara that would adorn her hair after the veil was placed was a relic of Richard's family, used by generations of Montgomery women in their weddings. Everything perfect, everything empty. "You look absolutely stunning," commented, her mother entering the room with a satisfied smile. "Richard won't believe it when he sees you," Melissa forced a smile. "Mom, have you ever wondered if you made the right choices in life?" Cecilia's smile faltered for a moment. "What kind of question is that, darling? It's normal to have doubts before the wedding, but it passes. The important thing is to be practical. Richard offers stability, connections, status. Love, well, love is for grocery store romance novels. And what if I don't want to be practical? What if I want more?" Her mother sighed, adjusting her own silk dress. "Melissa, stop with this nonsense. You're lucky. Many women would give anything to be in your place." The ceremony would start at 4 p.m. At 3:45, Melissa dismissed everyone, asking for a few minutes alone to connect with the moment. As soon as the door closed, she collapsed in tears. She couldn't do this. She couldn't marry Richard knowing what she knew, feeling what she felt. Her mind was swarming with doubts. What would happen if she gave up now? The scandal, the shame, the family's disappointment. But worse would be living a lie for the rest of her life. Marrying a man who despised values she considered fundamental. A slight sound of hooves in the garden below caught her attention. She approached the window and saw, with a racing heart, Jack mounted on Thunder, standing among the trees surrounding the hotel. He seemed to be contemplating the place one last time, like someone saying a definitive goodbye. She hadn't planned or called. They hadn't arranged anything. But there he was, like an apparition, a sign of destiny. Or was it just her own conscience manifesting in the form of the man who represented everything she was abandoning? Without thinking twice, Melissa grabbed the hem of the voluminous wedding dress and ran out of the room. She went down the service stairs to avoid meeting the guests who were already arriving in the lobby. Each step was difficult with the high heels and heavy dress, but she was determined. When she finally went out to the garden, she saw that Jack had turned and was slowly starting to move away, the white horse standing out against the green vegetation. "Jack!" she shouted, running in his direction, the dress dragging through the grass, getting dirty with soil and dew. He stopped and turned, astonished to see Melissa running toward him, all dressed in white, the veil half fallen over her face, her hair partially undone from the elaborate hairstyle. "Melissa? What are you doing? The ceremony?" "Take me with you," she interrupted, breathless. "Please, take me away from here." Jack stared at her, confused. "Are you sure? You're going to give up everything? For me?" "No," she answered, with a smile through tears. "For me. For us. Because I finally understood where my heart truly belongs." Jack's eyes shone with an emotion he hadn't shown for a long time. "And the farm? Richard will take it anyway. Then we'll start over. In another place if we have to. The important thing is that we're together." Without further words, Jack extended his hand. Melissa held it firmly, and with an agile movement, he pulled her up onto the horse. Like in the past, she settled behind him, embracing his waist tightly, feeling the warmth of his body, the solidity of his presence. At that exact moment, Richard and some guests, alerted by the commotion, appeared at the entrance of the hotel. The groom paled upon seeing his future wife mounted on the white horse, next to the man he had just humiliated. "Melissa, what does this mean? Come back here immediately!" he shouted, his face twisted into a mask of fury and humiliation. But it was too late. With a light touch on Thunder's flanks, Jack galloped away, taking Melissa with him. The sound of hooves echoed like drums of freedom as they moved away from the hotel, from conventions, from appearances. The wind disheveled Melissa's hair, completely undoing the elaborate hairstyle. The wedding dress was tearing at the edges, getting stained with the dust of the path, but she had never felt so beautiful, so authentic, so alive. "Where are we going?" she asked, shouting to be heard above the sound of the gallop. "Home," replied Jack. "Our home." The road ahead opened up, winding and unknown, but for the first time in a long time, Melissa did not fear the uncertain. There was something liberating about abandoning the prescribed script, about following the call of the heart instead of others' expectations. Months later, in a small property on the outskirts of Golden Creek, a simple but cozy house sheltered the couple. They had started from scratch, with the money Melissa had gotten from selling the jewelry she had taken on the day of the escape. Jack's farm was now part of Richard's resort, but the material loss seemed insignificant compared to what they had. Found together, Melissa had discovered a new passion, artisanal cheese production with milk from goats they raised on the property. Her blog about simple living and regional cuisine was gaining more and more followers, especially after a gourmet magazine published an article about the couple who had abandoned the life of luxury to follow their hearts. Jack had adapted well to the new reality. With his experience, he had managed to transform the small property into a model of sustainable production. The nights were filled with conversations by candlelight, laughter, plans for the future, and the kind of intimacy that only exists between truly connected souls. Thunder, the faithful white horse, now had a verdant pasture all his own where he galloped freely under the sun. Occasionally, the couple would ride him together and visit the small villages in the region, recalling the escape that marked the beginning of their true story. On one of those afternoons, sitting on the porch of the house, observing the sunset paint the sky with shades of pink and orange, Melissa rested her head on Jack's shoulder. "Any regrets?" he asked, caressing her hair. Melissa smiled, looking at the horizon where the sun was setting. "None. Each gallop of Thunder that day brought us closer to where we should be." The white horse whinnied in the distance, as if agreeing. 3 hearts, beating in unison, in tune with the earth, with the simple but full life, with the true love they had chosen against all expectations. Dear listeners, we hope that Jack and Melissa's journey has touched your hearts as deeply as it touched ours. There is something magically inspiring about seeing two souls finding their way to each other, overcoming obstacles and social conventions. To continue this journey through stories that celebrate the courage to follow the heart, we've prepared a special playlist that you can find by clicking to the left of the screen. If this narrative awakened emotions in you, be sure to subscribe to our channel and give a thumbs up to this video. Every day we bring unique stories that explore the complexity of human feelings and the choices that define our lives. And you, have you ever experienced a situation where you had to choose between material comfort and true happiness? Tell us in the comments. We're eager to read your stories and know what you thought of this surprising ending.